Hello and welcome to another video. So, I don't know if you remember, but a couple of weeks ago I put up a couple of polls in my community tab because I wanted you guys to pick my TBR for me, but instead of putting the actual book titles, I just described them in weird/interesting ways in order to see if with every different description it would change your opinion on what books I should read, and it totally did. So in case it wasn't clear, I basically chose 5 books for my TBR, and I let my subscribers pick what books I would read for a month out of those 5 picks. So without further ado, let's check out how each book did in the polls depending on how I describe them. Okay, so for the first poll, I decided to go with a description that basically matched what the plot was about. But take into consideration that I don't like knowing too much about a book before diving into it, so some of these, after having read the books, are not 100% accurate. But as you can see, this is how I described them in the first poll. And from this first poll, the book that won was actually Cinderella is Dead by Kayleen Bayron. And I was actually not expecting this one to win at all. I don't know if it's because of how I described it, but a lot of you guys really wanted me to read it. And I thought the other one, the one who came in second, was gonna win. Honestly, that's the one I wanted to read the most. But yeah, this one came out in the end, so let me tell you what it's about. So, as I said in the poll, this is basically a Cinderella retelling, but with a dark twist. Basically, this book follows the land where Cinderella lived, but 200 years after her death, and basically every year when girls turn 16, they have to go to a ball where they are chosen to be married by a man. So it's very, very problematic and very bad for our protagonist, who also happens to be a lesbian, so she definitely has extra reason to not want to go into this ball and get married to a guy. So basically, she flees the ball as Cinderella once did, and shenanigans ensue from there. I feel like this is a case where a book has a really great and exciting concept, but the execution isn't all that great. I thought the writing was not up to par to the concept. It was very simple, and also it was in present tense, so it was very weird getting into it for the first time. I thought the beginning was interesting, but then for like 2/3 of the book, nothing happened. Also, every single conflict in this book felt like it was solved too fast and too easily. They were like presented with a conflict that they had to resolve, and then they just resolved it just like that. I think all in all, I gave this book either a 2.5 out of 5 stars or a 3 out of 5 stars. I would say that if you like feminist stories and stories about people of color or queer stories, this is a good one for you. It's like a good basic that I think anyone could enjoy, but the ending seemed just too idealistic for the world we were presented. I don't want to spoil it, but basically I thought it was just too easy and that would never happen in real life. So besides the message being a little bit too much in your face, this book could practice some show don't tell. Also, the villain is super cartoonish, so be prepared for that. Besides that, I think it's a good read, and I would recommend it to anyone who thinks the premise is interesting. So right after I finished that book, I put out my second poll, and basically the one that won, I think it has more than half of the votes by this point, so you guys really seem to like this description, and it was the book with a powerful looking girl on the cover. Yes, this time I decided to describe what was actually on the cover, and for this one, the one that won was Legendborn by Tracy Dion. So, first of all, what is this book about? So, in the first poll, I actually described it as a girl with recently found powers unveils her mother's death. And I feel like that's pretty much what it's about. I mean, that's the beginning of the book. This girl who's 16 goes to early college, and then she has an encounter with magic that leads her to join a cult. No, not a cult. It's a secret society of Merlin's descendants. And basically, Merlin's descendants are descended from the Knights of the Round Table. And let me tell you, when I started reading this, the first 150 pages, well, let me just show you what it felt like.
Okay, so in this world we have Onceborns and Legendborns. called Legendborns. Then each of the Legendborns, each of the lines have a squire, but they also have a page. But what's the difference between the squires and the pages? What's a Scion? What the hell does that mean? Awakened, is that only for the pages or only for the squires? What the hell is Aether? How the freaking hell did you pronounce it? Merlin, is it only a person? No, it's various people. Like, anyone can be a Merlin. No, apparently it's something that I'm not gonna spoil. And then Mesmer, what the hell is that? Why doesn't it work on her? Ah!
Yeah, so getting into this book was a lot, but the writing was so beautiful, so engaging. When I was reading the first pages, it just pulled me into the story, and I could picture everything. It was so beautiful and so visual that I usually don't like books with a lot of description in it, but this author does descriptions so well that you feel you're in those places with the characters. So the characters, very good. I just wish they had been maybe a little bit older. I'm getting old, so 16 just seemed a little too young for this kind of story, but it was very interesting. I thought they handled topics really well, like racism, sexism, and grief. All of those are very important and very central to the main character, so I thought the author did such a great job with it. It was so well done, handled with such great care, and I thought it was very impressive.
The only thing I have an issue with, besides how long it took me to get into it, but, you know, that's to be expected for any fantasy book, the only thing I have an issue with is that I am sensing a love triangle, and one of the points of that love triangle is just, it feels like I'm reading YA from 2010, and that's not necessarily what I want. You know, the dark, angsty kind of guy. It's like, are we still on that?
But I did really enjoy the plot twists at the end, and overall, I think I'm definitely gonna keep reading this series. So I think I'm giving this book 4 out of 5 stars. I think it has potential to be a 5 out of 5 star book, and I might be leaning over to 4.5 out of 5 stars. But before we get to the next poll, please leave a like and subscribe because it really does help my channel. Let's go. Okay, so by the time I put up poll number 3, I was so sick of having to invest my time into understanding new fantasy worlds that I really wanted to pick up the one contemporary I had chosen. Also, this one, I decided to describe it by the points of views in the book. So for this one, as you can see, the one that won was male and female points of view by a long shot. And the one that actually fits that description is Ace of Shades by Amanda Foddy. Foddy? I don't know. How to describe this book? Well, if I had a hard time understanding and learning the new terms for Legendborn, well, this one was painful to get through, because in Legendborn, at least you are grounded in the real world. So you don't need to learn the rules of American University. You know, we know those. But in this one, you get to learn everything from scratch. It's basically the story about this girl whose name is N, and she goes to the City of Sin to find her mother. There, she runs into the Iron Lord, who apparently is the only person who can help her find her mother, and he is doing this in order to get money. Because basically, he needs the money for a scheme he's been running that went very wrong. Legendborn, I have to say, it was a bit of insta-love for me, but this one, they get really strong feelings about each other in 10 days, and the book specifies that it's 10 days. So I would say the most interesting part for me here were the talents and the diversity, but I just wish that there was more to the plot and that the character relationships felt more real, because they did feel kind of rushed and at times kind of fake. I just had so much trouble understanding the mythology and the history. I just wish someone would give me an expo dump that I would understand. That I don't know if I'm gonna keep reading this series. Please let me know down below if you've read this series and you've liked it, because I kind of want to read it, because I do like the talents and I kind of want to know where this is going. But at the same time, I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars and I didn't love it. So please let me know, because I'm pretty sure if I try to read the second one, I'm already gonna have forgotten everything. So please let me know if I should. So by the time I put up the 4th poll, I was already ready to pull out my hair, because I was just begging you guys from my laptop to pick the contemporary book, but you guys chose the other fantasy book, and my brain was already ready to explode with all the new terms and magic systems that were in there. So at this point, I wanted to cry. but basically this time I chose to describe basically the colors on the cover. So it was also kind of describing the cover, but in a different way because I had run out of ideas. And this time, the book that won was The Diviners by Liba Bray, the first book in a 4-book series, I believe. And I have to tell you, even though I wasn't really looking forward to this one, I really enjoyed it. Okay, the beginning might have been a little bit slow, and I did not see the plot until page 200, but the characters were just so intriguing and the world was just so immersive that I didn't care. I just wanted to spend time with these characters, except Sam. I don't like Sam, and I don't want him to get with Evie. Really enjoyed these characters, really enjoyed this world. It was super immersive, and I feel like I haven't read a creepy book in so long that this one just like did it for me. It was dark, but not dark enough that I was super afraid to read it. It was just like sometimes with the antagonist in this movie, every time they were there, I was like, ugh, ugh. So I thought that was really, really well done. I liked most of the characters here. The only thing I was confused about was that when I learned that it was more than one point of view, I thought that they would play a much bigger role, but they didn't. This was basically Evie's stories, and I feel like for the next books, we're going to explore more of the rest of their stories. So maybe each book for one of the protagonists, but the others are still getting points of views. I don't know, I guess I'll find out in the next book. So as I said with Legendborn, I am definitely planning on reading the rest of the series. I'm actually the most excited about this one. I think the characters are just, they're so good. So basically this one gets a 4.5 out of 5 stars for me. Let's go to the last one. So, as you can probably guess, I did not do a poll for the last one because by process of elimination, that was the only one that was there. So, the last one was The Opposite of Always by Justin A. Reynolds. And I read this in 2 days. If you couldn't tell, this is the contemporary book with a time travel twist that I described in the polls, and the yellow and green one with a male point of view. So, yeah, you guys didn't seem to really like the descriptors I gave it. So, wait, before all that, let me just get into the plot of this book. So this book basically follows this dude who meets this chick at a college party. And basically, they live their lives from then on, and they become friends, and then they become something more, and then something happens to this girl. She basically dies, and he gets stuck in a time loop trying to relive those 4 months and trying to save her life, but every time those 4 months are over and they get to the same day, she dies, so he has to do it over and over again until something different happens. So this was really interesting. At first, I was a little bit taken aback because each try lasted far longer than I thought. Obviously, it was those 4 months, so that took me aback because usually with time loops, they're like a shorter period of time, usually 1 day. So 4 months was definitely a big difference. But it also gave us more time to explore every single character. I really loved Franny. Jillian was a bit but I really liked the main trio. Their friendship was really nice. This protagonist is definitely meant to be really human, and that means that he's really unlikable at some parts. But I actually liked that about him because with every try, he tried to do something different, and sometimes that really, really backfired on him. Sometimes with his family, sometimes with his friends, and sometimes with his relationship to the main female protagonist. So I thought that was really interesting. Like, whatever you do, sometimes you just F things up, you know? You can't do everything perfect. Sometimes he just decided to F it all, and that try, I was so mad at him. Okay, so basically, read it if you like contemporaries, because this is such a fast read. My one problem with it, and maybe this is the reason why I shouldn't make it 5 out of 5 stars, is that it really felt like I could tell that this was a male author writing this. It's just, Katie, this girl, felt perfect. It might be because that's how Jack perceived her, and then he didn't let us see her flaws, but her only flaw was that she was sick and she was gonna die in 4 months. That's it. She was basically the perfect girl. She was the cool girl. She was up for anything. She got along really well with his family, with his friends. He just fit together perfectly in his life.
Does she have no defects? Is she the perfect girl for you and in general? So I just wish we could have gotten to see a more real version from her, because the only thing that was wrong with her was that she was sick. And she couldn't help that, so that wasn't even part of her personality. So I just wish she had more defects.
But I guess he was just really freaking infatuated with her. So I've changed my mind. This is a 4.5 out of 5 reads because looking back on it, it kind of irked me that she felt like perfect. So yeah, 4.5 out of 5 stars. Still a very good read. Super quick read, and I definitely recommend you read this. You might cry, but it's a good read. So here we go. These are the 5 books I read in 30 days, and you might say that's not that impressive, but keep in mind that in March I only read 1 book. So this was progress. So basically I read these books in 30 days, and this is my favorite and this is my least favorite. So please leave a like if you like this video. Comment down below if you've read any of them or if you guessed any of them by the descriptions I gave. Please subscribe if you haven't already and click that bell button to get notifications every time I post a new video. I post videos twice a month on this channel, so that's every Monday and Friday, and I guess I'll see you guys next time. Bye!